You can't have avoided seeing the amazing scenes of protests over the last few weeks, fueled by the Black Lives Matter movement after the death of George Floyd in America. It's incredible to see people taking to the streets, wanting to make a change in the world around them. As a Christian, I fundamentally and totally believe that Black Lives Matter, that we are all made in the image of God, each of us equal, and that every single person deserves to have the respect and the dignity and be treated the same way regardless of their race or their colour or their background or what's brought them to that position in life. And I stand alongside those people that have been protesting on the streets. Jesus says some really challenging things throughout the Bible, and in this week's reading, there's some challenging things for us to grapple with. This statement that he doesn't come to bring peace but a sword can be really difficult for us to get our heads around when we're so used to hearing about Jesus as the Prince of Peace. In fact, just last week we were looking at a passage where he sends out his disciples to be peacemakers and to be peace finders in the communities around them. How can that Jesus be the same as this Jesus who's talking about conflict and destruction around him? And I think what we've seen in the protests and the movement of Black Lives Matters over the last few weeks demonstrates to us this desire at the heart of God to see justice. Jesus is saying in this passage, do not put anything ahead of the peace and justice that comes from the kingdom of God. The unity that you think you see in the world around you between families and friends and people that are the same is not the peace and unity that Jesus wants to bring. Jesus wants to bring a unity where all differences are embraced and accepted and ultimately overcome by the equality that comes from being in him. He wants us to recognise that we need to put him first. Nothing can come in the way of that. We cannot disown him in order to put anything of the world first. We have to see him above all else. And when we do that, we will start to see the injustices that surround us in a world that is full of systemic prejudice and discrimination. I believe that if Jesus were physically with us today, he would have been on the streets in the last few weeks protesting against racism across the world. I believe he would have stood and declared that Black Lives Mattered. Jesus is somebody who stands totally for the overcoming of prejudice, for the unification that comes through him, and for peace to come through protest if it has to. We shouldn't see Jesus' word as an excuse for us to go and be violent, but it is a cry for each of us to stand up for justice and righteousness and the kingdom of God, which treats everybody as sons and daughters of the King.